We're back with our politics lead now. President Trump is pitching his tax reform plan in North Dakota, just one of a slew of competing priorities the White House is hoping to pass through Congress. Earlier today, the president, quote, blindsided Republican congressional leaders, according to a Republican official, by quickly agreeing with Democrats on a plan to tie funding for Harvey recovery to a 3-month extension on the country's debt limit and a stopgap spending bill. The Democratic proposal, House Speaker Paul Ryan had just hours before called ridiculous, which leads us to another episode of, is there a tweet for that? Is there something in the vast reservoir of Trump tweet archives that has him criticizing the exact same thing he did today? You already know the answer. Here's Donald Trump in 2013. Quote, the worst negotiators in history, otherwise known as Republicans, have just offered to suspend debt ceiling for 4 months. Pathetic. CNN White House correspondent Sarah Murray has more on a move that blindsided the president's own party in Congress.
We have a lot to discuss, including the fact that there's a new and seems to be record-breaking hurricane heading right toward Florida and Puerto Rico.
With another hurricane bearing down on the U.S., President Trump is reaching across the aisle to prove he can strike a deal on disaster relief for Hurricane Harvey and avoid a fiscal crisis.
We essentially came to a deal, and I think the deal will be very good. We had a very, very cordial and professional meeting.
Trump siding with Democrats today.
We had a very good meeting with Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer.
And ignoring the protests of GOP leaders and Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin as he threw his support behind bundling Harvey disaster relief with a 3-month proposal to raise the debt limit and a 3-month stopgap spending bill.
Everyone is in favor, obviously, of taking care of that situation, so we all very much agree.
Trump confirmed the deal just hours after House Speaker Paul Ryan panned the Democrats' proposal on the Hill.
I think that's ridiculous and disgraceful that they want to play politics with the debt ceiling at this moment.
Trump's move comes on the heels of a meeting with top congressional leaders at the White House on a day when Democrats had been fiercely critical of the president in the wake of his decision to end the so-called DACA program.
The president's decision to end DACA was heartless and it was brainless.
Hours after the Trump administration announced it was ending a program that protected young people from deportation if they were brought to the U.S. illegally as children, Trump appeared to be looking for some wiggle room, tweeting, Congress now has 6 months to legalize DACA. If they can't, I will revisit this issue. Today, Trump insisted he wasn't muddying the waters.
No mixed signal at all. Congress, I really believe, wants to take care of the situation.
And said he's hoping to sign legislation that protects the Dreamers and beefs up border security.
I'd like to see something where we have good border security and we have a great DACA transaction where everybody is happy.
As Trump navigates a jam-packed domestic agenda, he's also juggling escalating tensions with North Korea.
We will not be putting up with what's happening in North Korea.
He spoke today with Chinese President Xi, who's holding out hope North Korea will back away from its nuclear weapons program.
He's very much in favor of the de-nuke of North Korea, and we're talking about different things.
As for President Trump, he's still not ruling out a military option.
We'll see what happens. Certainly that's not a first choice, but we will see what happens. Thank you very much.
Now, the president was speaking in North Dakota. He referred back to that meeting he had with congressional leaders earlier today and insisted that everyone left happy, not too happy, because you can never be too happy in those scenarios, but insisting that both Republicans and Democrats are fine with that deal. Trump was in North Dakota to sell tax reform. We'll see how eager Republicans are to work with him after the stunt he pulled at the White House today. Jake?
All right, Sarah Murray at the White House. Let's talk about the president agreeing with congressional Democrats on how to move forward with our panel. Kevin, Paul Ryan this morning called the Democrats' plan to tie these votes together ridiculous and disgraceful. Fast forward a few hours, President Trump says, deal. Shrewd? What do you think?
No, I think he was totally reflexive. I was joking around with Nia. It reminded me of when Kramer went in with Jackie Childs on the episode of Seinfeld, and he was supposed to get $50,000 and all the free coffee, and he accepts the deal right as he says, free coffee. And it seemed very reactionary. It was not very well thought out. There are a lot of people unhappy up on Capitol Hill, but there's also a sense of resignation, which is that's the deal that we're going to have to go forward with. let's see what we can do, and at least maybe we can get some more floor time now so that we can manage some of the efforts on tax reform.
And Jen, let's put up this photograph that was caught through the Oval Office window of President Trump and Chuck Schumer. There it is. It looks like they're goofing around after this deal was cut. And actually, you know, there are a lot of people who, before the president took office, who thought these two probably can work fairly well together. They're New York deal makers. Trump at one point was a huge contributor to Chuck Schumer. And we saw that side of Trump today, if only briefly.
Well, that's true. He's probably also a better time than Mitch McConnell, so perhaps there's a low bar. You know, he may not feel that way, President Trump, once he realizes that he was probably rolled today by the Democrats, who knew that having 2 votes on the debt limit means there's 2 votes that are must-pass pieces of legislation that they have opportunities to try to attach something like the DREAM Act to. And they've been pretty vocal about that since this deal was cut, but we'll see if he has the same love and almost embrace for Chuck Schumer after he sees the coverage.
Now, the spin that I'm hearing from the legislative director of the White House is that this move by the president clears the decks for tax reform. There is a case to be made for that.
Yeah, it clears the decks. I mean, and there's this legislative logjam, right? And so rolling all this stuff together does clear the decks for tax reform. A number of things that have to get done as well. CHIP, renewing that, a defense bill as well. So the calendar is so packed. So yeah, and that's what you heard Mitch McConnell say too. Essentially say that's the argument that the president made, and that's what they accepted. You know, I think some Republicans who I've talked to said this is basically emblematic of the president's distaste for Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan. He essentially went into the Oval Office and kicked them in the gut. And Mitch McConnell in some ways looked like that when he was talking today, like this was something that was very surprising to him. And so here he is now, not only cutting this deal immediately with Democrats, but then flying off to North Dakota with Heidi Heitkamp and seeming to suggest that this might be sort of a new strategy, cutting deals with Democrats, perhaps on DACA as well. So, I mean, we'll see if this is a new strategy from this president. But Republicans I talked to certainly not happy about it.
All right, everyone.